The heroin and cocaine, the crack, all of those things have the same exact neural pathway as sugar. Sugar, cocaine, crack, heroin, they all have the same neurochemical pathways in the brain. They all have the same. We had 300 years here where they were studying the effects of these things on us. So when we look at Nixon, Nixon is a key figure. Nixon not only released heroin in the community, but he changed the food pyramid to put more sugar in it. And from the time of the late 70s to the early 80s, diabetes has, type 2 diabetes specifically, type 2 diabetes went through the roof. What happens when men have high blood sugar is that they begin to adapt the neurosteroid patterns of women. When women have high blood sugar, they begin to adapt the neurosteroid patterns of men. Neurosteroids is the neurochemicals in your brain that makes you a sex. So a man's brain is a heterosexual man's brain is completely different than a heterosexual woman's brain. So sugar retards that. That's the reason why Black people are 200% more likely to have Alzheimer's disease and dementia because of type 2 diabetes. That's the reason why we leading in cancer, because type 2 diabetes. The number one thing that insulin does is insulin builds up fat. Insulin is a weight gainer. That's why in the history of insulin, insulin has never cured anybody of diabetes. Insulin can only make your diabetes and your insulin resistance worse. Because insulin makes you gain weight. And everybody knows obesity is number one risk factor for diabetes. So when we talk about type 2 diabetes, and we know that 85 to 90% of the people that get type 2 diabetes is Black people, we know that it comes from the diet. None of that is accidental. When we go back and we look and we see that Richard Nixon and his administration put the heroin into the Black community, that's not an accident. Sugar, when you take sugar, sugar releases opioids in your brain. Your body produces opioids. The more melanin that you have, the more opioids you release, and the higher your addiction rate is to opioids. See, look around in the rap community. Niggas on lean, niggas popping them pills. They know that Black people's body has an affinity towards opioids. They understand this because they know that the reward system is based on melanin. When you have your brain reward center is a melanin center. It's filled with neuromelanin. The more neuromelanin you have, the more dopamine gets released. It's called the ventral tegmental area or something like that. The more neuromelanin you have, the more dense your neuromelanin is, the higher that amount of dopamine that gets released. And the faster it moves through the brain. That is what controls your rate of addiction. So they understand that we, look, and when I say we, I mean Black folks in general, but I specifically mean niggas like me and you. Nigga, we Black for real. You know how some folks be like, oh yeah, we Black folks, but you be like, nigga, you like a Steph Curry kind of Black folks. You're not really like Black folks. You like a Kevin Durant kind of Black folks, my nigga. You ain't Black folks. We are Black folks. And the more neuromelanin you have, the higher your susceptibility is to addiction. Not only to heroin and opioids, but also to sugar. And they know that sugar releases these opioids in the brain. Sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And they know this. I got 10 children. Let me tell you, I got 10 children. I got 3 boys. Do you know what they give infants? Boys too. Right. Do you know what they give infants for circumcision, for painkillers? They give them sugar. It's a sugar syrup called Sweeties. And they give them, it's a sugar syrup. It's just a syrup made out of sugar. It's real dense sugar. And when you give them the syrup releases so much opioids in the infant brain that they're numb enough that they can cut off the skin of their penis and they won't feel it. That's how much opioids are released in your brain when you have, that's how much dopamine is released in your brain when you take sugar.
Dr. Inky, I assume you're talking about sucrose. Does this also apply to fructose?
Fructose is like 10 times worse.
Because I know that fructose will go mainly into the liver.
Yep. And you know what the thing is with that? You about to open up another doorway because that's how the Latinos gets hit. So when the sugar hits, Black folks get type 2 diabetes and Spanish people get fatty liver disease. And those both serve as gateways to cancer, Alzheimer's. And so the solution they gave you is we're going to give you some more insulin. Like, wait a minute, nigga, didn't you say the problem? You said the problem was I had too much insulin. So why would I be injecting insulin or taking oral insulin if I got too much insulin already? That's not it. That's not a solution. That's why every single year, the people that take insulin, what they need next year, more insulin than they took last year. And next year and next year and next year, the insulin just keeps increasing.
Because their blood sugar is too high.
Because the blood sugar, but that's all based on the fact of the insulin not being able to get into the cells. So they never mention once that you need to clean out those cells. Alcohol is sugar. So there's a lot of niggas talking about, yeah, I'm eating clean, I'm about to pop this bottle. Like, oh, nigga, how can you be eating clean, popping bottles? Nigga, that's a whole, alcohol is sugar. All alcohol, no matter if it's liquor, champagne, wine, they all are made from fruits and vegetables. Before they was grabbing up Jewish people. This is what they was doing. They was cutting niggas' heads off to understand the brain chemistry. The doctors and the scientists now, they have all this understanding of how the bodies work, primarily because of what Germany did. That's why they at the same time as publicly, they say, oh, the Nazis are bad, blah, 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 blah. They love the Nazi scientists because the Nazi scientists was cutting niggas open and all that to figure out how do you think they know how the body work? They got to cut it open and look in there. Who the fuck is volunteering for that? To have their body cut open while they still awake and all that. Ain't nobody volunteering for that shit. They was grabbing Black men. Look, the nigga, the father of women's medicine, I don't forgot this nigga's name. Marion Sims, I think his name is, or something like that. This motherfucker he got famous for taking Black men, strapping them down in the barbershop and doing surgery on them in front of everybody, cutting their body open to explore and shit. In barbershops. So then he moved from there to kidnapping a bunch of Black women, raping them. He raping all of them, keeping them pregnant and cutting open their body in the middle of their pregnancy to see how pregnancy developed and all that. And he becomes the father of gynecology and all that. Like, this is the shit that we're not discussing this shit. So this is why we at the forefront of all these fucking sicknesses, right? We don't realize that our bodies have been studied in depth and we're not investing no money to understand how this shit works, right? So we got to deal with this shit. Let me show you the fucking the reports on how the sugar affects the brain and shows how the brain is becoming, the female brain is becoming masculine. And the male brain is becoming feminine. Like, listen, man, you know when I come in, I'm coming in with heat, man. Some folks might feel away, but we got to deal with this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we don't